On this episode of the vlog, we're putting this dozer on that trailer. Stay tuned for a behind the scenes look at how CMT Ventures is moving this dozer north to Fort Mackay. The idea of a D11 doing 90, 100 kilometers an hour down a highway is a very foreign concept for a lot of people. We're about to expand some people's understanding of heavy haul with this video. We are in Calgary, Alberta at Finning, Canada. So this is Heavy Metal Equipment's D11T. It came out of the States. Came here to Finning to receive a few things. Some of those things were a ladder, they corked the tracks, they put a pilot up top, fire suppression, they modified some of the catwalks that fit around the back. So a few things to get it ready for the oil sands, which is where this tractor is heading. So today this tractor will start its journey here in Calgary, Alberta, head north on Highway 2 up to Edmonton, and then from there it'll go north on Highway 63 up to Fort McMurray, past Fort McMurray, over the bridge to nowhere to a place on the banks of the Athabasca River called Fort Mackay, where it'll end up in Heavy Metal Equipment's facility there until it eventually ends up in the oil sands, where it'll do big bulldozer things such as working around rope shovels, hydraulic mining shovels, ripping, that sort of thing. It's pretty rare that you see these big tractors on the move. So today we're with CMT Ventures, capturing how they move this tractor north up to Fort Mackay. So a bit of background on CMT Ventures. The owner, Corey, started trucking with an old International truck that was on their family farm. Shortly after, in 1995, Corey purchased his first truck, which was a Kenworth T600, and they've just continued to grow ever since. They got into agricultural hauling, so grain, tanker, so ethanol and fuel, low bed, heavy haul. They're a pretty diverse company in terms of haulage. They don't just do big heavy hauls like this. And today they're up to about 60 different trucks and 200 different trailers. So they've grown to be a very large company from very humble beginnings. And today we're going to see a fine example of big horsepower and logistical professionalism. So this is CMT's steerable dual lane transporter. This is built by Aspen Custom Trailers out of Leduc, Alberta. So this is an 88 wheel trailer for hauling up to 125 tons. So this is what we're putting that D11 on. And right now they're just working on splitting the trailer so they can walk the tractor up onto this deck, because they're hauling it with the undercarriage and it'll sit right up on top here. You've got a steerable dolly in the back. And what's neat about the steerable dolly is on the highway, it'll steer itself. When you go into tight corners, such as in cities or in a town where large machines like this often get hauled into heavy metal shop or something, that dolly can actually be steered from the pilot car. So if they're going to take a real tight corner, you can work with them to steer the actual trailer around that corner, because you've got so much trailer here that you can't simply steer it with one truck up front. But because that D11's so heavy, we've got the two Jeeps up front, help spread out the load, and then we've also got We've also got these here. These are just plug-in wheels, or training wheels as they call them. So these are additions onto the trailer. So with heavy haul, because that D11 weighs 210,000 pounds roughly, you need a whole lot of tires and axles to distribute that weight out across the pavement. So that's why they use these plug-in tires and the 2 Jeeps up front. This here is CMT's Kenworth W900, a brand new one at that, 2025. But take note how this is a Kenworth, not a Peterbilt. This is the prime mover for this load. There's also another truck at the rear pushing, but this thing provides a lot of the muscle to pull that D11 down the road. And it is so beautifully named Silver Psycho. This steerable dual lane transporter has a steerable dolly on the back. So when it's on the highway, it'll steer itself, but when you're going around tight corners, like when they're gonna back out of the finning yard here, they have to make quite a tight corner, or if they're delivering this in town or one of heavy metal shops, fairly tight corner, you can't steer this whole trailer with just one truck. So you've got a steerable axle on the back, and it's all controlled from the pilot car with this little remote here. So you've got on, off, steer right, steer left, extend, retract. So he can control all the functions of that steerable dolly from this remote from the pilot car in the rear. So it's super critical when they're making really tight corners. Now they're just loading up the 11. They've split the trailer, they're walking it up onto the trailer, and they're being real fine with the steering clutches there, just trying to get that tractor lined up real good so they can center that load on the trailer. So they got quite a few CMT guys walking around making sure the tractor's right where it needs to be before it goes down the highway. Once they've done this, it'll get chained down. Got our heavy haul permit, we're ready to go. So for the dozer to go on the highway, they put some protective mats around the windows to protect the dozer in case any rocks were to come up from other traffic. Don't want to break that glass, so that's protected, but here it's all chained down, ready to go. It's a whole lot of dozer. Right here, I mean, like, that's a whole lot of trailer right there. I'll make note that we're filming this right now in April, so it's currently road ban season here in Alberta. Alberta is one of the few places in the world that observes road bans. So they place a weight restriction per axle on loads like this and other loads, tandem axles with trailers, to protect the roads. So during the spring thaw, when you get that kind of frozen, half frozen ground, muddy ground, you don't want really heavy loads on few axles down the highway because it'll damage the roads. So in order to protect the roads, they put what's called road bans on. So it restricts roughly 75% of the allowable weight per axle. So instead of hauling 100% of the weight, you can only allowed to haul 75% of the normal weight per axle. Doesn't really change anything with these big D11s because you already need a lot of tires and Jeeps and dollies and training wheels or plug-in wheels, as we've seen, to haul these things. But for like 777s, 395s, that sort of thing, D10s, D8s, the road bans do have an effect, so you just need effectively more tires to haul the same amount of weight so that the weight is split across more axles and tires, therefore lower ground pressure. So that's all it is. So this is CMT Ventures Peterbilt 389, named Cotton Candy, and a beautiful truck at that. Long hood. When we were in New Zealand, everything was cab over. They like their cab overs, but we like long hoods here in Canada. This is called a fall off load, so that push group, the blade, and the ROPS that was off the D11 will go on here, so that tractor can make weight and height requirements for hauling, but fall off load or just additional load, everything that doesn't fit on the primary load goes on here. But this truck is their flagship truck. It's won many awards at many shows, and rightfully so. That's that. This is the blade. The D11 blade, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 2 meters tall, but as you can see, D11 blade is much bigger than me. And then the push group is just down here. So this is the push group. It's just the two arms that connect the blade to the dozer. You've got your dual tilt cylinders, exhaust stacks, and as you can see, this is a JEL serial number cat. So D11Ts, the JELs are the serial numbers for those. So yeah, this is how they split up the load so that that tractor weighs roughly 210,000 pounds. And then this is the fall off load. Push group, blade, ROPS. to set up the second truck, which is going to push from behind because there's that much weight, one truck can't do it. So the second truck's getting linked on right now just through a drawbar here, and then they'll send this thing down the highway and end up in Fort Mackay and start pushing dirt from there. So. That concludes our visit with CMT Ventures, hauling heavy metal equipment's D11 up to Fort Mackay. We followed it on the highway for a bit, got some rolling shots of it, and we have parted ways, and they are headed north, and we are headed back to BC on a flight tonight. So appreciate y'all watching the episode. Hope you learned about how we haul D11s here in Alberta, Canada. Yeah, we'll see you guys all in the next episode.